Welcome to Two Guys Garage. Now, if you cannot weld, you cannot build your own car. Well, or at least you can't build a car like that.
Well, you're gonna have a hard time. You know, patch panels, maybe you need to put a new quarter on, your floor pans are rusted out. So today we're gonna update you on the 33, and we're gonna show you a lot of tips on how to blend fire with metal. It's all about welding today.
Now, this 33 Ford is literally 25 years worth of dreaming this big hunk of steel right here.
Yeah, and it started out as a shell, completely abandoned, lack of love, but that's why we're here.
That's right. 1956 was the last time this poor little sucker had any love. You know, that's too bad.
Yeah, you saw us. Now we started with, the shell, but let's put that aside. We started with a rear axle and a front axle, or Tiger quick change, or SoCal front. We got them located on our jig. Then we could start making frame rails and connect the two halves together.
Yeah, we just made a pattern. We took it to our local water jet guy. He cut them out. Then we bent them into shape with a nice taper on both ends. It was really simple, and we're kind of making an I-beam frame. And it looks fairly original, it's original styled. That way when you kind of walk up to the car and you look at it, it doesn't stand out as like a tube frame, which to me just looks a little bit weird in a 30s car.
You saw us, we chopped the top on one of our previous episodes. Now you see it's not welded together yet, because what that's going to let us do is build the cage up inside. We can fit it nice and tight, but we can pull the top off, get all the welding done, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
Yeah, now I'm going to bring you over here to the steering. Now this is Schroeder sprint car style steering. The cool thing about it, this arm just like sticks right out of the body. So if you want to look out, you can watch the steering run, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's better the steering arm hanging outside the car than your own arm trying to steer that front end.
Now if you come up front, these look like 40 Ford drum brakes. But actually inside, they've got a cool modern disc hidden in the front. And kind of one of the big deals about this car in my mind is that, it looks kind of period. It looks kind of 60s, artist impression.
Yeah, a little artistic freedom.
But on the inside, it's going to have air conditioning. It's going to have not all, but it's going to have some modern amenities, and it's going to have a modern powertrain.
And speaking of modern powertrain, this is one of the first that we've been able to sneak out of Ford Motor Company. It's their 2011 Mustang GT. It's their brand new 5.0 liter, making 412 horsepower in the Mustang, a little bit of exhaust and some air inlet. We're going to be doing a whole lot better.
Yeah, you can imagine 440 horse-ish in a 2,700 pound car is going to rip. And so if you look at our frame tubes, we're trying to really stiffen this front end to give it some good rigidity. And when we came up to the front, we had to make these tubes removable because we need to be able to remove the radiator, remove these tubes, and then get the engine and trans out the front. A little tip for you, we kind of made these separators. We had these water jet as well. And we put a little washer inside. That washer will give you a little bit of space for paint, powder coat, plating, whatever you decide to do, because you can always squeeze it a little bit tighter. Whereas if you, don't do something like this, you're going to run out of room, and as everything in the car starts squishing itself together, you're going to be out. And this is a really great way to make sure when you go to reassemble, everything fits proper.
Yeah, it's a real bummer having to hammer in your brand new painted parts.
Especially when other people are watching.
Yeah. Well, last time you saw it, we tacked in some horizontal bars, but you can see the size of this motor. We've got twin VCTs on each side of this thing controlling our cam motions that we had to come back and rethink this plan. So, with that, we can see we've got some exhaust starting to flow out here, which is looking really cool.
Yeah, it's going to have a covered hood side. We'll have a full hood side because we want to hide the modern technology inside of this, kind of skin. And the idea on the pipes, they're stainless and was kind of have a wave motion, kind of like riding a wave or maybe, organized spaghetti.
Artistic spaghetti.
Artistic spaghetti. But it took us about probably 2.5 days just to lay the things out, get them where they flowed right, they look good from not only up close, keep them tight, but also across the room.
Yeah, not only are they functional, but you can make them look cool. So it gives you a little bit of that artistic freedom. Now these come into a 4-inch pipe. And inside's a 3-inch pipe perforated with a lot of muffler packing in here so we can kind of take the sound down just enough. Now, what you make sure you don't do is lick that pipe when it's hot or even sit on it. You might be in for some excitement you weren't ready for.
I think that we'll be used to it, but everybody else that gets in, that's going to be trouble. Now today what we're going to do is show you welding, as we said. We're going to pop the top off. We're going to show you some TIG welding on tubing, but what we really want to show you is also some MIG welding, which is something we don't really show a lot of because a lot of guys at home, they have a MIG welder, that's what they're used to using, and give you a few tips on how to weld at home.
Yeah, it's great to be able to go back and forth depending on the job and what you're doing. So we're going to go ahead and get this top off and we're going to start some of this work.
I'm trying to stretch my fuel dollars as far as possible. Is there an easy way to improve my fuel efficiency? A clean fuel system does burn more efficiently, which means better fuel mileage for you. Combine that with smart driving tips, and you can get a lot more out of your gas dollars. 3M's Complete Fuel System Cleaner is a pour-and-go solution that you use every 5,000 miles or with every oil change. It protects against carbon buildup and engine knock, cleans intake valves, and removes fuel injector deposits. It restores power, performance, and fuel economy without depleting your wallet. This tip is brought to you by 3M Car Care, performance-driven solutions. This segment of Two Guys Garage is brought to you by Satisfied Brake Products, North America's leading independent manufacturer of friction technologies. Look to Satisfied for all of your stopping needs.
Welcome back. All right, we got our 33 hot rod, we've got our full cage, we've got to weld up, but we've got to get the top off first, so here we go.
This side.
Yep. All right, that's looking pretty sharp. Not bad. Now, big thing on the TIG is if you can get a nice fit on your tube, that'll really make your welding go happy. You know, if you got a huge gap, if it doesn't fit well, you're not gonna have a nice time once you sit down and actually weld. Now, the second thing is, be sure you get it good and clean. TIG especially does not like it to be dirty. MIG, you can get a little bit away with a little bit more on the dirt side, but with a TIG especially, keep it good and clean. Get a stainless brush like this, get in there, kind of scrape it out. You know, you can weld a little bit, scrape it out. Another good tip is do a little bit at a time. A lot of times what I'll do is get down in here, do about a half a tube, move on to another spot, because what happens is if you get it really, really hot, it starts to get a lot of porosity and kind of ugly looking. So I'll do about a half a tube, move on to the next one, half a tube, kind of move around. Next thing I want to show you is if you come down to the machine itself, is I want to show you the gas. Now this is 100% argon. The argon is set at about 20 CFM. Now on a MIG, you'd use more like 60 CFM. So TIG's going to use a lot less gas than a MIG will, which is nice, especially for somebody like me that welds a lot and spends a lot of money on gas. Now the second thing you want to do too is come down here, you're going to look at your amps. Now your amps are, this is a max setting. So the amount of whatever number you see on here is when you push your pedal, that's going to be full throttle. So if you want to turn it back, let's say you're going to run sheet metal, you might want to turn it back to, you know, 40 to 60, something like that. That way you're not going to penetrate through, burn through, pop a lot of holes. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is post flow. Now the post flow, this is a air-cooled TIG. When I say air-cooled, it's not really air, it's argon. Argon is running through the tip, and you're running about 1500 degrees straight to a pinpoint accurate tip, which is awesome. Now, when you can imagine that thing gets hot, and at some point it's going to want to melt the tungsten. So you can set this at about usually 10 to 15 seconds. Once you hit the pedal, you let off, it's going to blow some extra air through there, keep it nice and cool. So that's a few tips for you, kind of get you set up, started on a TIG. Most of the stuff we're going to do today is going to be on MIG, and Byrd's going to show you that. So let's go to him.
Now, Brian gave you some good tips on TIG welding, and I'm going to show you a little bit on MIG. Now, TIG welding, tungsten inert gas, so I've got a tungsten electrode. Essentially, if I've got my ground wire here, when he steps on the pedal, he's creating a current. He can add, you know, different amounts of heat by his foot control and different amounts of metal by how much he feeds that wire in. Well, a MIG is nice because it's more hands-free. I can do it one-handed, but I don't have as much control over heat and wire feed, because as soon as I press that trigger, I've got the preset amount of amperage, and the wire's coming out to a preset amount of feed. But it's great because it can do a lot of work. It can do a lot of work that TIG welding can do, and they're more affordable. They're easier to get access to. So we're going to show you some of the things you can do with a MIG welder at home, like doing sheet metal and patch panels. Now here's a good example of what could be a patch panel, or in this case, a door strike. So when we come back, we'll show you some good tips on how to MIG weld sheet metal, so stick around. Hey, welcome back. Now here's the inner workings of a MIG welder. We got a spool of wire. We can do aluminum, but we'll need to get, an extra driver on the other end of my gun. But for now, we'll look at just the steel. We can do different gauges depending on the thickness of the material and what we're going to be welding on. Now I've got a little electric motor in here that's going to drive this wire, through my nozzle, as well as put the shielding gas through. Now, most welders, typically if you flip the lid up, will have some sort of a chart to get you started. So if you're not sure where to begin, this will be a good place to start, and then you can dial from there. Now if we look at the front here, you can see, we've got our feed and we've got our temperature settings, so we can play with those independently. Once that trigger's set, that's what it's going to do. Now, here's this good application here, our door strike. I'm going to show you a couple of tips. Now, you can see I've got a couple spots in here, and sometimes those are the hardest to get started. And what I mean is, typically as the material gets thicker, I'll add more amperage. When it gets thinner, I'll reduce it. But sheet metal's so thin, if I go by that normal gauge, of temperature, I'm either going to have a cold weld that doesn't penetrate, or if I turn on my amperage, I'm going to burn a hole through it. So kind of a good tip for thin sheet metal is add amperage, but add some feed too. Now that extra wire going in is going to absorb some of that heat, so it doesn't all go into your panel and burn a hole. And what I like to think about is almost, you're giving it a good squeeze and release, is I'm actually taking a nice blob of hot metal and I'm going to push it in so I got good penetration. I put a lot of heat into that thing and get it to, get in there and grab, so I've got good penetration in the metal, but I haven't burned through, and I've got plenty of metal there to actually make that joint. So if you can get your first wave of spots, after that it's a little bit easier because you can see some of this metal is a little bit thinned out and rough from age and rust. Now the next pass, you can come in here. Now here's a weld, looks a little bit cold. I got my heat up. The next one to get myself dialed in. It's penetrating a little bit better. This one's sitting nice and flat. The second pass, I can come back and I can overlap. So I can put my next weld halfway onto this one and onto my parent material. So once my first weld is in there from the first pass, the next ones I've got mass there to start my weld on, so I'm not burning a hole through my thin sheet metal.
Yeah, which is good, but on the bad side of that is that you're actually adding more material, which in effect you're making more of a heat sink and changing your heat setting just as you add more material. And the way we kind of counteract that is, one good idea is just to go back in and clean with a wire brush, and that will really kind of clean some of the MIG oxidation out of the way. But another good idea, take a little grinder, like a little hard wheel or a little grinding disc, and once you're kind of starting to fill in some of your areas, come back, knock some of those back off. What you're doing is taking rid of that material so you don't end up with this big blob of not only dirt and contamination, but you're also keeping your heat setting, consistent, because welding really is all about your heat setting.
Right.
It's all about the heat setting. Let me say it again. It's all about the heat setting. You know what I mean? It's a great thing about TIG. You can vary it as you're going.
Exactly.
And MIG, really take the time, get it set up right, get it good and flat, like you said. Once you get it to that point, you'll really be off and running.
Yeah, you don't have the dynamic control on a MIG, but with a little bit of patience, you can keep yourself consistent so your welds come out sharp, perfect every time. So I'm going to clip off any excess here on my wire, and I'm ready to come in here and start laying more tack welds around this thing.
This tip is brought to you by AutoGeek.net. We are car care.
All right, we're here again with Mike Phillips, our detailing expert. Today it's about paint sealants.
Okay, what we're using here is Wolfgang Deep Gloss Paint Sealant. And we're going to go ahead and apply this to the paint, and this will seal the paint up and create a really slick, high shine finish. And you want to rub this in straight lines in the direction the wind would blow over the car.
Now, why not circles? Most people would say circles.
Well, the reason for this is just in case there's any kind of particulates or impurities that get onto the pad, this will keep you from putting any circular scratches into the paint.
Now, what's the difference in a wax and a paint sealant?
A wax is usually a carnauba-based product, where a paint sealant is typically a polymer or man-made based product. It'll last longer and tend to protect better. After the paint sealant has dried to a haze, take a microfiber polishing cloth, fold it 4 ways. That'll give you 8 wiping sides, and the plush thickness will spread out the pressure of your hand. Then go ahead and remove the paint sealant. Now let's remove the tape and check out the before and after results. Over here, you can still see the water spots, and over here, a flawless, swirl-free finish.
Nice. That's a lot better. It's looking good.
Sharp. Kind of shimmers, doesn't it?
Time for a ride.
For more information on this and more detailing tips and techniques, check out autogeek.net and click on Show Car Garage.
Welcome to the break room. First one we got is from the Deltran Battery Tender, and this is the Battery Tender Waterproof 800.
Yeah, this thing is great. It's all the technology built right in here. Integrated circuit, it's got its own brain. It's going to take care of your battery, extend the life, keep all your toys nice and charged up. You got everything from super long leads, so you can pretty much go grab any toy you need and hook the thing up. If you kick it over in the water, say you're at the dock charging your jet ski, not a problem. The thing's fully waterproof.
Yeah, and this thing is really small. It's about the size of a computer mouse, which is nice. Weighs less than a pound. It's got a 3-year warranty. That's the Deltran Battery Tender Waterproof 800 Automatic.
Hey, our next product's from Tonneau Pro. It's their trifold tonneau covers.
Yeah, these are really easy to install. They go in like 5 minutes. Literally, there are no tools required. You put this baby on, you can put all your cool valuables.
Yeah, once you lock the real tailgate, all your stuff's in there. It's protected from the weather. You know, nobody's going to have prying eyes and reach in and grab whatever you've got stored back in there. Now, you get on the website, they've got a full video on how to install it. And again, there's no tools, so it's simple. You can put it on and off, maybe up at your cabin, you know, at the dock, whatever you need to.
Yep, and you can pull up your tailgate, lock the tailgate if you have a locking type tailgate, and all your valuables are going to be in there really nice and safe. And it gets you a nice aerodynamic shield going over the top.
Yeah, you might even pick up a little fuel economy.
That's from Tonneau Pro, the trifold tonneau cover.
All right, this next product is great. This is Fix-A-Flat from Sopus Products. Now you're cruising down the road, maybe you're going to work, you're on a road trip, you got a flat tire, now you're stuck on the side of the road digging out tools, jacks, and hopefully you got some air in that spare.
Now this is a must-have for everyone. This is tire sensor safe, so you don't have to worry about that. It wipes out really easy, so once you do get your tire changed, but be sure you have one of these in the trunk of your car because you never know when something's going to happen. Put it in, there are no tools required, shake it up, it's really a piece of cake, and this will get you to a good, safe repair shop.
Yeah, it's non-flammable, so it's safe to store. This is Sopus Products, Fix-A-Flat, throw it on your trunk, ready for that next sort of bad incident.
Right now, we got to take a break, and then we're back to work.
For more information about anything you've seen on today's show, check out speedtv.com or visit TwoGuysGarage.com. This tip is brought to you by LMC Truck. One way to put the end to those rattling windows in your truck is by installing a window channel kit. Over time, the rubber on the window channel will wear out, causing weather elements to get inside. The anti-rattle kit seals to the door glass as the window slides up and down, and is very easy to replace. Simply align the clips and press it into the door. The new kit will tighten up your window track and reduce road noise, vibration, and keep the elements out. The kit is available for most domestic trucks, and while you have the door panel off, it's a good time to replace that window regulator too. This tip is brought to you by LMC Truck. With over 30,000 truck parts in stock, you can get the right part at the right price right now.
Okay, we're about at the end of welding this cage up, looking pretty sharp, but sometimes you'll go through and you'll end up with a place that you end up with some porosity in. It just starts welding weird, it's strange, and it's normally at the time when everything is hot. What's happening is A lot of times in these tubes, you'll build pressure as you build heat. So as you kind of weld in a little corner like that, you're starting to open it up and make the metal loose. It'll start to relieve some of that gas. And what happens is that gas pushes your shielding gas out of the way. And then you get oxygen in, it adds porosity to the weld, and it can actually fail. So one of the things that's nice to do, you can go in and add some little 1/8" holes. That'll allow it to breathe, keep that from happening. Once you get the full thing welded, you allow it to cool, and you'll be able to just fill that hole. You notice on bicycle frames and whatnot, they've got some things
Oh yeah,
like that.
anytime you're working with, a closed-in, volume like that, and you start building up heat, then you get some, what's so funny?
Everything you do, he's got to copy you.
I'm just trying to keep up with the Joneses. You finally got some new shirts. The other ones were looking kind of ragged. I thought I'd add my little logo on there too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got our striker panel in here. Just did a little quick metal finish on it, knocked down the high spots. If you really want to get detailed about it, you can come back in, pound out the low spots, and then get it nice and clean so it doesn't even look like you welded it in. Otherwise, for the good body shop, you're going to put a little skim coat of filler and be ready to go to paint. Now, another good tip on MIG welding or filling in, something like this where you've got a nice big gap. I've got a tight spot over here. I can actually start welding, and I'll aim my welder towards my previous weld so I've got some mass there, because otherwise if I try to fill this in too big a gap, I'll probably end up just burning through my sheet metal. But I can build my weld up and not have to go in there and cut a splice out. I can fill it in just by welding.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Another one is too, you put a lot of tacks, put extra tacks through there, and they'll kind of hold it as it's trying to shrink itself in, and it'll allow you to kind of push through and give you a little bit more mass.
Yeah, so hopefully you got some good tips on welding today, a little bit of fabrication. We got a lot more for you, but we're out of time this week, so we'll have to catch you next time.
See you guys next time. Don't go. Wait.